Let me just make a brief statement. Then I'm going to turn it over to Chief Slinkard, and then he will make his statement. And then at the end, I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Cohen to give some closing comments. And as you know, baby Messiah, 10-month-old, was shot and killed on June 14th. It's never a good time when a child is killed in our city or in any city. It affects the city and the whole community. Our hearts go out to Aaliyah Scott, the mother, and Nigel Scott, the father, 10th-month-old Messiah Marshall, who was shot last Wednesday in Southwest Houston. We have some good news to report in reference to the death of the toddler. A 24-year-old suspect has been arrested in the ongoing investigation. And because HPD worked around the clock on this case, they were able to apprehend one of the suspects, if not more than one. Overtime was approved for this investigation, and I certainly want to thank Chief Acevedo and his entire group for just working feverishly to get these people off of our street and to find the person who fired the fatal shot of baby Messiah. At this point in time, let me call on Chief Slinkard to give you more details.
Thank you, Mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for being here. As the Mayor has already covered and as Chief Acevedo talked about last week in our press conference, the death of baby Messiah and the tragic murder on June 14th at Nob Hill Apartments, I think really set an entire community and an entire city back on our heels for a second while we reflect on something so senseless and something so tragic. And really on that day, and Chief Acevedo was very clear in indicating that a line had been crossed. And a line had been crossed in our community that we simply, as citizens or as society, should not stand for. The tragic death and murder of a 10-month-old while in his father's arms. And so the Houston Police Department got busy right away on making sure that we could get justice for baby Messiah, do what we needed to do, a proper investigation. And the chief and myself and Chief Fenner and all the men and women of the Houston Police Department, we spared no time, we spared no resource in making sure that this investigation goes forward as it should. I will caution you up front as I go through some of my comments. This is an ongoing investigation, but we made a commitment to you last week that we would be transparent in this investigation, and as we can provide information to you, we will do that, and we will continue to do that. It has not changed that we are still actively pursuing 3 suspects in this case, one of which is in custody. So let's remember that some questions I know that you might have will not be answered today because of the ongoing investigation. But on June 19th, we arrested 2 suspects on warrants for aggravated assault relative to a separate incident that occurred 9 days prior to baby Messiah's death, but at the same location. These warrants were served yesterday by HPD homicide investigators, HPD officers at the Southwest Tactical Unit and the West Side Gang Unit, along with officers and agents of the Gulf Coast Violent Task Force Offenders Group. Now, while in custody for those aggravated assault charges, the 2 suspects were interviewed by our HPD homicide investigators. I want to recognize Lieutenant Behringer and Detective Holbrook, who are here today, and the tireless work that they've done on this. During those interviews, one of those suspects in custody for that previous aggravated assault charge did admit to his involvement in the shooting incident and was also identified by the father as a shooter in the incident resulting in the death of baby Messiah. That suspect is Jared Bolligan, black male, 24 years old, who is in custody and has been charged with capital murder as of this afternoon in the 184th District Court. Again, the investigation is ongoing, but I want to say that Chief Acevedo, I talked to him just a few moments ago on the telephone, and he is actually in Bethesda, Maryland right now, actually attending with other chiefs and leaders in our nation a summit about crime and reduction of violent crime in our nation, and representing the Houston Police Department and the City of Houston there. And let me just say and echo what the mayor said about his commitment and this council's commitment to helping us address violent crime, tragic incidents like this, and get ahead of it. And the mayor has not spared resource in helping the police department. Even though we are understaffed and under-resourced in many areas, the mayor has still made a commitment to help us in fighting violent crime and sparing no expense when it comes to investigators that need to be out there working, patrol officers that need to be out there working. And I think this one suspect being in custody within a matter of 6 days, where we had no information really to go on, is a testament to what Chief Acevedo, Chief Fenner, myself, and others in the department and the leadership are trying to do, and that is work together with our detectives and patrol who do such a good job every day. But we have to combine those resources, combine our investigative efforts and these wonderful detectives here, along with those boots on the ground in patrol that are doing a fabulous job and know about the crimes in the communities that they serve. And this is a great example of investigations and patrol working together, coming out with a result of a suspect in custody for this tragic capital murder in such a short time period. With that, let me turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Cohen for her comments, and then I'll be happy to return and answer any questions that you have that I can.
Thank you very much. And while I'm introduced as Mayor Pro Tem, the fact is I'm the council member for the district in which this occurred. And what's even more interesting is I lived for about 20 years on the same street that this occurred. So I'm very familiar with the area and the community. I know what a safe and what a safe place Meyerland is, but I know that in any community this type of crime can happen. So I want to particularly extend my sympathies to the mother and father of baby Messiah, but I also want to thank the chief and all the other chiefs, and particularly the mayor, for taking this so seriously and getting something done so expeditiously. But I would also say to everyone, if you have any information about this crime, let Crime Stoppers know, because there still is a reward for more information. So please let Crime Stoppers know if you know anything. And again, thank you to all for what you did and for responding to my questions so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Chief Slinkard will take any questions, or Chief Fenner?
What was the motive for the original shooting?
We're still part of our investigation, but we do believe, and I will share, that the potential exists that we believe this might have been a retaliation incident for a previous altercation of some time, but we're still investigating that.
With the father?
Potentially, yes.
So the father would know who these suspects are?
Well, the father positively identified this shooter. Whether or not he had prior knowledge of them or a relationship with them previously is part of the investigation.
Any word that the father may have held the child up in front of him during the shooting?
No. And we don't have anything to add. We've heard some of those same things that are circling out there, and we're interested in fact, and that's all, in making sure that we document everything appropriately and that this is done right, not that it's done quickly. We're interested in being as transparent as we can with all of the information, but only as fast as we can do it accurately, and still make sure that we get justice for baby Messiah.
The suspect you have in custody, has he given you any information on the other two suspects that you're looking for?
Still part of the investigation.
Is he the one who actually pulled the trigger?
Right now, we have him identified and charged with capital murder as at least one of the potential multiple shooters. Yes.
Did he just offer this information up, or did you, when you took him into custody for the aggravated assault charge, did you suspect that he may have something to do with the 10-month-old shooting as well?
Well, of course, the investigators, doing their due diligence, right? They've got two suspects in custody for a previous aggravated assault at the same location. Obviously, those are suspects that you want to talk to, and being a good investigator, you're going to interview those suspects. As part of that interview, then the investigation unfolded from there, and the information that we were able to glean from the one that we've charged at this point.
Is there any indication of gang involvement as a
We still do believe, as we said in the beginning, that we think this will have some gang affiliation, but we're not ready to talk about any particulars regarding a particular gang in that area.
How far apart was the assault from the actual shooting?
I believe
as far as days and time.
I believe it was 9 days. I believe it was 9 days, yeah, approximately 9 days, prior to the incident of baby Messiah being killed.
And the original aggravated assault did involve the baby's father? I'm sorry if you already made that clear. I'm confused.
No, part of the investigation. Part of the investigation.
Okay, so you're not releasing any information?
Correct.
But there was a separate assault that happened 9 days prior?
That's correct.
Have there been any weapons recovered as part of the investigation?
Won't go over any of that evidence other than what I've given here, which is statements by the defendant that's already been charged.
Chief, there was a mention the other day, Chief Acevedo, about the apartment saying we're going to turn this place around. Was that a particular goal of increased patrols in that area, or was he just referencing we're going to turn this place upside down and interview people?
No, let's be careful on the latter of those comments. Wonderful, wonderful citizens that live in that apartment complex, just like all of our complexes across this great city, where we have wonderful citizens that every day are trying to go about their business, do their jobs, raise their families. But sometimes there's an element that might exist that would detract them from being able to do that and go on with their lives, and then we see some of this violence that erupts. That's what the chief was alluding to, the fact that we are going to be ever present in those areas where good citizens feel like they are under siege, if you will, from some violent crimes. Now, let's face it, over the last 5 years, our violent crime in the city of Houston has remained relatively flat, but across the country, we are starting to see a slight rise in violent crime. And so that's something that we want to address, and he mentioned that we will address those high-volume apartment complexes where some of those violent crimes are starting to increase. We need to be proactive in those efforts. So an increased patrol presence, not just because of this incident, but because it is necessary.
Another question from a colleague here. The two folks with the ag assault charges, those were the same two that were being questioned the day after the shooting?
That I do not know. That I do not know.
Let me just close by saying that no murder in the city of Houston is acceptable. But let it be very, very clear. When there's a kid or a child murdered in this city, we're going to expend every and all available resources in order to find these people and bring them to justice. This is especially true when it involves kids in our city. That is something we're simply not going to tolerate. So let just everyone be forewarned. No murder is acceptable. But when children are at stake, every single dollar that we have that's available, we're going to put it in the hands of law enforcement to apprehend these people and bring them quickly to justice. And I want to thank Chief Acevedo. I want to thank his command staff, all of the police officers who just did some brilliant work in order to get us where we are at this point. Thank you so very much. Thank you.